What's up, everybody? How are you guys doing today? It's Daniel, and this is day 4 of 50 days of data. Looking forward to this episode. I actually had a really interesting conversation with a friend of mine last night who wants me to come on and be a data advisor, which I'm going to get into a little bit later. But first, we're going to go through what we're talking about today. We are talking about data wrangling. I know what you're thinking, going out there on a horse, grabbing a lasso, throwing it out there, hooking some bites, and bringing them in, but that's not really what data wrangling is about. So data wrangling from a high level is, how is data collected, aggregated, stored, put together, and brought together in order to paint a beautiful picture of whatever it is that that company is trying to do and trying to figure out. So there's tons of places that are tracking data that you may or may not be aware of. Edge devices specifically, which is closer to the place where that data is being produced, are now more commonly collecting data. So you can think about it in terms of a sensor on a transformer that will talk to PG&E. For those of you out of state of California, that's Pacific Gas and Electric. That's the electric company here. And those things are going to be pulled in. So you can also think about it in terms of beacons. If you guys are aware, there were iBeacons developed a couple years ago. There's companies like Estimote that collect those. Other guys like Beacons in Space that collect beacon data that are aggregating and selling it. I want to say though first is I'm going to potentially gloss over like certain types of data aggregation in certain companies, and there's just so much to cover here that I'm not going to be able to chat about it all right now. So I just want to set it up so that you guys understand that. But data is being collected with all the smart home devices. So think your shower head is going to know how much water you're using. Your fridge is going to know how much milk that you have and potentially be able to order that. And there's also other ways that this data is being collected as well. When you go to the grocery store, companies are sucking in data of what you're buying with customer loyalty programs. I'd already touched on some of the stuff that we do in the advertising industry, but just to review, you have device ID data, cookie data, you have other types of data that you can overlay from DMPs, which are like third-party data sets. And what this is trying to do is paint a holistic picture from end to end of what you're doing, how you do it, so that you can be bucketed and targeted against from a subsegment. I don't know exactly like how every media planner in the whole world does it, but there's a ton of different ways. It's part art, part science. But when somebody comes to me and says, hey, Daniel, I'm looking for 13 to 17-year-olds who play games who could possibly drink some type of soda, well, the way that we go about doing that is we say, like, who is in this particular ecosystem that we could potentially target, and we overlay data across an entire swath of inventory in order to do that. But to talk more about the data sales advisory role that my friend approached me about, it was actually a really interesting conversation, and it dovetails quite nicely into what we're talking about today. So he and I had a conversation about hardware devices in the data collection with that. It's in the fitness space without getting into it too much, but there are so many different pieces that can be collected just on the fitness side of thing. They have fitness t-shirts that have sensors embedded in them so that they can capture how your muscles are firing, and you can actually optimize your workout with that data. On top of that, there's shoes from Nike that are capturing what you're doing when you're walking or running, or other apps like Strava that I know some of you guys might use that are capturing what you're doing when you're cycling. So what we can do from a data perspective is not only take that first party data that is being created from whatever it is that you're actually like putting on yourself. But if I'm tying that Nike shoe data together with the workout shirt data, with your purchase history at the grocery store, and then using that third party data or second party data if you're in some kind of data pool, then I can get a very complete picture of who you are, what you do, where you go, what you like. It can be helpful for the companies to understand what products are able to be made specifically for you as a target demographic, but it's also something to just be aware of that, this is happening, and bringing all this data in together is actually quite cumbersome and operationally challenging from a real business perspective. A lot of companies own a individual subsegment of the market, like Nike shoes, for instance, but they wouldn't necessarily know unless they shared data with like the companies that are actually producing the shirts that have sensors in them. They wouldn't be able to access that data, but they could potentially buy that data. And then after they buy that data, they could go and license some of the other purchase history data or your grocery store data to have a comprehensive idea of who you are. So these are just some of the things that, are happening right now, taking place. I wanted to bring it to your guys' attention, talk through it a little bit. We can get more into it in another episode if you would like, but I appreciate everything that you guys have told me so far from a feedback perspective. If you like what I'm doing, please subscribe to my channel. I'm not shy. I like love notes. Feel free to hit me up via email, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, however works for you. Looking forward to talking to you guys soon. Thanks and have a great evening.